So, in our Hinduism discussion, we had talked about the centrality of Dharma, Dharma being the way the world works. And part of that, depending on your interpretation, obviously there were the reformers, um, but a part of that traditionally, especially in the time period when Buddhism forms out of Hinduism, which we'll talk about some today, Dharma was fully wrapped up in the caste system. The caste system was a part of the embodiment of Dharma. And the ability to achieve kind of moksha was limited. And you'll watch a biography of the Buddha where we see that he's this Hindu prince and he becomes dissatisfied. He sees the problems, these passing sights that are important to the kind of the story behind Buddhism. And the Buddha, before he was called the Buddha, he had kind of taken himself to this point of extreme renunciation, almost to the point of death. And then he has this moment of enlightenment, which is the middle way. Now, the word enlightenment we need to be careful of because it carries a lot of baggage in our culture. And a better way to look at it would be to say awakened. We often think of enlightened as terms of maybe knowledge, learning, science. We have the Enlightenment era in our history of the West. That's kind of a self-given appellation, enlightenment. We've come to the knowledge of how all these things work. Aren't we so wonderful and enlightened? Within Buddhism, it's not merely about a bunch of study, though there are branches that put some emphasis on study. Most don't, but it's certainly not about scientific study or knowledge of the way the universe works. When the Buddha means that he's awakened, it's about apprehension. It's about grasping, seeing firsthand, face to face, looking dead on at reality at its ultimate. That's what the Buddha is awakened to. That's what his name, his title, the Buddha, means, is the awakened one. And it's not about having the knowledge, scientific knowledge of the universe, or being a mathematical genius or something like this. It's about, in religious terms, in mystical studies, you see this idea of awakening or enlightenment having much more resemblance to, like, if you were blind or you were in a dark spot, like pitch black, you were down in a cave, and then you pulled out of that, you were pulled from the cave, or your eyes were open, the blindness was taken away, and you see things, you see reality. That's the spiritual reality that the Buddhist is talking about when they talk about the Buddha being awakened. And of course that's, Buddhism that has to do with awakening or enlightenment. And it's rooted in the idea of this middle path as a path that anyone can take. Man, woman, Dalit, that untouchable caste, Brahmin, anybody can engage on this path and achieve enlightening or awakening. As you'll see in the documentary that you should watch, he's Gautama is born into this clan, southern Nepal or near India, of a Hindu family. He's a prince. He has these 4 passing sights. He's wealthy and he's been protected. You'll see all this story in the documentary. But he sort of accidentally encounters old age, sickness, death, and an ascetic. And this leads him to leave his life, his family, his wealth behind in search of how to kind of overcome age, sickness, death. If you read the Katha Upanishad that was assigned, you'll note some similarities here, right? When Nachiketa speaks with death, He's like, look, it doesn't matter how old I get to be, how much magic I have. Nothing like that really matters, because I'm going to die anyway. So what's the path beyond death? Um, for the Buddha, it is the middle way, because he traveled this long road of self-denial to where he's living off of like a grain or two of rice a day, and he's nearly dead. And then that doesn't fulfill him any more than his life of total luxury did. And so he's brought this bowl of rice by a woman, and that compassion, that moment of compassion, opens his eyes to what he calls the middle way. This achievement of awakening happens after meditation under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, and he gains perfect knowledge of his self and his past lives. So this shows, there's this connection to the Hinduism which he comes out of. There's a belief in reincarnation. There's a belief in the escape from reincarnation, because while he doesn't embrace moksha, moksha is the Hindu concept of being joined to kind of the universe. Nirvana is the place of total recognition of reality, that awakening to reality as it is. And nirvana is interpreted in many different ways, but it's rather different than moksha. Nonetheless, it is related to Hinduism. At the same time, there is this sense of reincarnation, of karma, and of dharma. But the goal is to become one who kind of enters into the state of nirvana. You'll read, as we go through the units on Buddhism, you'll read the Buddha's first sermon. This is one kind of teaching that's pretty well accepted as actually from Gautama after his enlightenment, which is the Deer Park sermon, in which he talks about the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. He established an order of monks before he died called the Sangha, and he introduced to them the three refuges, which are the Buddha himself, the awakened one, the process of awakening, Dharma. Dharma here is the way the world works, but the Dharma of the Buddha, of the Buddhist, is directly tied to the teachings of the Buddha. The way the world works is defined by what the Buddha has seen, has apprehended, has been awakened to. So this is kind of the core that he builds: the Eightfold Path, the Sangha, the Buddha himself, and his teachings. These are the things that are meant to establish and maintain Buddhism. You'll see in another documentary that it moves and thrives because it achieves the support of certain kings and merchants, interestingly enough. There's no direct successor after the Buddha's death. There's simply the Sangha, the community of monks.